everybody, and welcome to David Christopher's. I'm Jen.
And I'm David.
And we're here today on our channel to show you some wonderful DIY
Today we're going to talk about topiaries and lots of different kinds of topiaries and spheres and orbs and things like that. So we're going to run through a few different options of ideas for you.
Everything you see that will be used in the video today can be found on our website at davidchristophers.com. We sell wholesale and retail, so if you own your own business or you're reselling things to make money, you can set up a wholesale account with us and buy our products wholesale. Or if you're a retail customer, click the retail link and you're all good to go. You're set up. You can see everything that we have for sale and everything that David's going to be using in the videos today. Okay, Mr. Miyagi, show me your ways.
Wax on. Topiary. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is I want to use a couple of small containers because I've got a couple of smaller, this is like a 5-inch, I think, Privet Ball. And so these are great for if you have dough bowls, if you have some kind of a tray that you want to use, you want to put something on top of a candle holder of some kind. They work for a lot of different options. We even wire them into wreaths sometimes. So, but right now we're talking about topiaries. So there's a lot of different options of things that you can do with topiaries. And there's a lot of different heights. So we're going to use this little Hob Nail terracotta pot. And we really just want to lift this up so that we get that true topiary style.
So you're going to build your own topiary.
I'm going to build my own topiary instead of buying one. So I'm just going to take, I've got my piece of styrofoam, my spray bar, and I've cut just a little piece that will slide almost down in it. And I'm going to shave just a little bit off of my styrofoam. So I'm just shaving the corners down a little bit. So this really just, I want it almost wedged completely in there, really tight. I'm going to put a little glue on it so that it stays securely where I place it. And we want to get that as flat as possible. Right there. So you want to be able to pick the styrofoam up and that not go anywhere. So that's perfect. Then we're going to take a little bit of sheet moss and we're going to push the sheet moss down around our styrofoam, going around the lip of the container. So we want to see the container as much as possible. And then with sheet moss, you can just kind of tear the excess because we don't need all this. This container's not that massive. And we're just going to push that down around so that we hide all the styrofoam. We don't want to be able to see styrofoam. That hides completely and we're good to go. So then we're going to take some birch branches because we need some height. So cut these just a little bit because the ends were had a little bit of a curve to them. So I want to get them as straight as I can. And then really you just want to decide how tall you want these. So we're going to, kind of gauge. And I think what I'm really going to do is I'm going to make one height and one another height. So I can have two different tiers of heights in the same area. And we're going to make this one a little bit taller. And you want to cut a little bit higher then you actually want it because we're going to place the orb down on top of that. So we're going to cut all of these tips off of our birch branch here. And then you can take these, the little tips, and go back in to the base because you want some, you don't want all just massive twigs down at the base. You want a few smaller pieces to look like it's kind of growing, like a little bit of a vine almost. So we're going to continue with that. We're going to cut a couple more sticks, place a few more of the larger branches into our styrofoam, put a little bit of glue on them. so that they're going to stay in well. Okay, we've got a decent cluster of twigs right here. We want to just make sure this is pretty level all the way across. Then we're going to take an orb and we're going to add a little bit of glue, but we want to make sure that that fits down. This one's actually made on a plastic base, and I know you probably won't be able to see this, but it's actually just like a flat surface that they rolled into a ball, so I can actually stick my twigs up inside of that a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. If I can get some on the end of I glued my finger. Ow. A little bit burnt. Okay. I'll live through it. So we're going to push that down onto our branches. Alright, so we've got that. We're just going to add another little branch here or there if you choose to. Don't have to. I have our first one done. I want to make another one that's a little bit shorter. So we're going to speed through this one just to give you an idea. So you may not have a wall of clocks all in the same color and everything, but we're in our store. So we've got some clocks and some abstract art. This is kind of a little bit of a modern area. So we're going to do a few topiaries. These would be great for like a mantle that had, you know, because they could work really well on something narrow, but they work really well for something large too. So we're going to end up adding some other topiaries to this surface just to coordinate, because we like to do things in groupings because it gives you a better sense of, well, I could do this, but maybe I need a larger one or a smaller one or something a little bit different shape. So we're going to go through several different topiary options that are going to go on this cabinet today.
I love the little topiaries. Now this is a big boy. Big boy topiary.
So with topiaries, most of them are going to come in multiple sizes. And as such,
so we got the baby.
We're going to learn how to use larger topiaries right now.
This is the daddy.
This is mama. Yeah.
Remember when our kids were little and they referred to everything as based on the sizes, like daddy, mama, the baby.
It's not small, medium, large.
Yeah, that was funny. Sorry.
It's family oriented.
A little memory there. Okay, so you're going to show us how to use. Are you putting both of these in one big topiary or two separate topiaries?
No, I'm just showing size ranges. So the large one we're going to use just on top, because everything doesn't have to necessarily be on top of a branch. Now, if I was going to do something on a branch for this particular one, I would want to use the smaller one. The smaller one would make more sense for this particular container if it's up high because of the visual weight that it's representing here. But if I'm going to use the larger one, I don't want this is going to make it appear much too top heavy. So I'm going to be able to put that one, since I'm going to just place it directly on the container, that one's going to make a lot more sense right there. And really for some of these things, you don't necessarily have to secure that into place, but we're going to just because that's how we sell them in the store. So you could have the option of just placing some things like this, and some people have urns outside of their house that are fairly large, and you can get a really large topiary ball that just sits on top of that, and we're going to kind of do a small version of that.
But can you do like a reverse topiary and put some sticks in the top?
You could, yeah.
I don't knock you out with the first.
The first thing we're going to do for our topiary is we need a little styrofoam. And I'm cutting this just because I want that really, right in almost level. I like it just barely above the tip of the container for the most part. And you can, if you want it just completely flush, you can shave this down a little bit more. I'm dipping a little glue. Now, that's going to stay really well. Make sure our ball still works on there. I've got just a little bit of a gap between my ball and the container at this point. So that's perfect. And we're going to, again, add some moss. And you can pin it in if you choose to. Usually the stems that we add are going to hold that in. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a little bit of a collar around our container. I'm going to take this larger boxwood leaf and I'm going to glue that in and let it kind of hang out around the container. It doesn't take a lot. You can do this kind of sparingly. It's just something to make it appear as if it's growing out of the container as opposed to just the ball on top. Then I'm going to add a little bit of this thyme because it's a little longer. So that's going to give me some different effect.
Who knew you could buy thyme?
You can always buy thyme.
I've got jokes.
You do have jokes and rhymes. And puns aplenty. So now we have a decent collar for our privet ball. So it appears as if there's some things growing down. And then the other thing that we can do is I'm going to add some of this garden foliage and I'm going to make it a little bit taller and appear as if it's starting to grow around my privet ball here. It makes it have a little bit more natural appearance. So we're going to do this at some different heights, intervals. And just, you can even poke some of that into the privet ball here just to let it stay in a shape if you need. Cut some of it a little bit shorter. So now that we've got our collar really well done here, this ball is basically built on the same frame as the smaller ball, and as such I can actually put something up inside of it, and if I make a little hook on the end of my stem, I can make sure that that's not going anywhere, and then I can dip that stem in a little bit of glue, and that will really secure our ball and keep you from pulling it up anymore, so that when people take it from the store it doesn't fall off in their trunk. That's always a bonus. When we do these, sometimes if you want to, you could always anticipate adding a little color. If you wanted a little bit of something seasonal, you could add some eggs to the base or something that's bright for Easter, and then you can always change that out for Christmas. You can add something that's just, gives it a little red berry, something very vine and sparse that would just add a little bit of color to the base. But this is our finished larger topiary. sphere. We're going to put it over here on our cabinet.
This topiary is really cool and easy. I think that most people could make that.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this channel, you probably are interested, hopefully, in making your own things. So I think you could do it. What's next?
So next we're going to do something that's not a ball-shaped topiary. We want to explore a couple of different options as far as different ideas in topiaries.
Great. I'm excited.
We're going to use this somewhat narrow oblong container to try a different style of topiary. And for that, we again need some styrofoam. So we're going to cut that down and shave this just a little bit, not too much, because we want that to fit really close to flush inside the container. That's pretty perfect right there. And then I end up shaving the corners of my styrofoam because it helps the moss not look like a box. It looks a little more like a mound, and that makes me feel better. Because moss doesn't usually come in squares, it comes in rounds. So we're going to dip that in a little glue. Try and get some on all the sides. And then press that firmly down for just a few seconds, and that should hold really well. Now, gotta go back and have some moss. And this is a little bit easier because it's got a little more space on the corners to get the moss down into the sides of the container. Just be a little forceful with it. And there you go. You can't see the styrofoam at all. And that's what we want. We don't want to see the styrofoam. Styrofoam's great for holding things in place, but it's not meant to be pretty at all. So at this point, we're going to go back to our birch branches. And we're going to start cutting some pieces. And we're going to use this as our height. And sometimes you get some odd shaped branches. We're going to cut those sideways branches off. We'll go back and use those in a moment. But we want to cut several pieces, and we're going to line those up. Rather than keeping everything directly in the center, we're going to make more of a hedge out of this topiary style. You can always put the little pieces back in. I do like to get a little bit thinner on the ends, but this is a part where we really just add a lot of branch to the middle of the container lengthways. We don't want to really go to the ends on the sides. So as you can see, we've got our hedge narrow and in the middle of our container, but it goes out close to the ends, not completely. We don't want to go all the way to the ends. And we've got a few pieces up here at the top that we really need to shave down because they're too tall for our topiary. Topiaries need to be usually pretty structured as far as their shape. So we're gonna alter this just a little bit. Just take your wire cutters or some really good scissors and just shave that down to pretty equal height all the way around. Doesn't have to be exact, don't go overboard. And then we're going to take a piece of wire that I've already wrapped in some brown floral tape. We're going to go around this hedge and just tighten it up a little bit, not too much. You want to keep really the same shape. So I'm going to show you how to tape the wire. Place our wire inside of our floral tape almost vertically and then spin, holding the tape and the wire with your bottom finger flat and spin with your top finger and just kind of pull up, and that should coat your wire completely. Now it's brown instead of ugly and silver where you can use it. And so this one I'm gonna weave a little bit back and forth in my topiary because we're gonna place our hedge around inside of this, and the wire is really just gonna help hold it into place. Okay, so we've got that ready. Now, there are a lot of different options that we could use to create our hedge. So simple ones would be things like, we could make a nice little boxwood hedge fairly simply. You can make a lot of different things into your topiary form. Really, this is just going to mimic the shape of the container down at the base. It's going to be kind of narrow and be just a little topiary at the top. So we're going to use our boxwood, and to do that we're really going to cut these stems individually, and then I'm going to take a piece of my birch branch and I'm going to attach that with a little piece of floral tape, because this boxwood stem does not go far enough down into my container. So I can't glue it directly into the container, and I don't want it just hanging there. So we're going to glue that in like that. And that's going to hold that one in pretty secure place. And now we just have to do that a bunch of more times. So we're going to speed that up so it doesn't bore you. We've finished, and some of the boxwood pieces have wire in them, so we have to bend those down just a little bit so that it it covers adequately around the top. But that's just a nice little piece that we can add to our topiary group. It's a little bit different shape that would be appropriate for some narrow spaces and things of that nature. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button because we're going to bring you new ideas every week.